Hello, this is Tiara,
Hello, this is Allie.
and this is the Goddess Vibration. Welcome back to another episode. So, we are really, really excited about this episode because we have another fabulous guest, and she does something that I think is so, so fascinating. And so, what we're going to do today is we're going to chat a little bit about what she does, and we're also going to chat about the unique healing style that she uses to help people, especially when it comes to dealing with emotional matters and mental health matters. Her name is Leri Smith, and she is a metaphysical minister. And the whole concept of a metaphysical minister is so fascinating to me. And it's a big reason why we wanted to have her on the show to talk a little bit more about that. So we're just going to dive right in and hand it over to Larry. And Larry, if you could share a little bit more about what a metaphysical minister is and like what that work looks like and how you got into that work, I think that that will really help kind of set the foundation for the rest of the episode.
So thank you guys for having me on the show. I'm excited to share what a metaphysical minister is. So metaphysics is the exploration of reality beyond the physical world. You can think of it as like going into the quantum field. Think of it as going into that creative energy that like God created the universe, then created the earth, then created the life on earth. People created us and now creates through us. And it's more about like finding that mind, body, spirit connection where you first know that God is all that there is. God is in everything. If you have an issue with the word God, you can think of the creator or the universe or spirit or source, whatever like resonates with you. And you connect with that first, you know that that is in you. That's what animates you. That's what gives you life. That's what creates through you. And then when you're in that creative place, you can create anything that you want for your life, including having that positive mental, emotional state that will bring you joy and happiness and give you that life that you love. I became a metaphysical minister because I first started off as becoming a practitioner with Science of Mind through the Center for Spiritual Living. And we take classes where we learn about like manifestation, the art of allowing. We learn about how to heal our mind, body, spirit, how to create a life that we love through our thoughts. We learn that thoughts are things, thoughts are creative. All of your thoughts create. So you start kind of like managing your thoughts. What are you thinking? What does your life look like? If you look at your life shows you what you're thinking. If you want a new life, how can you change your thinking? And through a series of like many years of classes and study, I also studied energy healing and psychology to create the program that I actually implement now. But it's just really a life changing. Um, it's really a life changing way of living, and mostly we think of it as like the spiritual component is like new thought, ancient wisdom, meaning that we give a new way of looking at all of the major spiritual religions and spiritual components of living and how like the Buddha lived, how Christ lived, how Muhammad lived, and how, all of those the great people who actually was able to create like a peaceful, joyous life, how they lived, and then we kind of um, we implement that into our life and our way of being.
So, Larry, I'm sorry. I didn't even do this. Are you a reverend? Like, do I say reverend or like Rev Larry? Reverend Larry? I'm sorry, I didn't do that. Or minister? I probably should have done that. I apologize.
No, I'm not attached to my title, but yes, you can say Rev Larry or Reverend Larry
Ah,
or just
okay,
Larry. It's
okay,
up to you. Um, it's
okay.
it's like my way of being is way more important than any title. Most people call me, and
Title,
I'm
of
in a
course.
certain
Okay,
setting, they call me Reverend Larry, but most people just call me Larry.
okay, okay. All right. I just wanted to be respectful. So it sounds like it kind of some of the work that you're doing incorporates some of those teachings that were so beneficial to some of those other big thinkers, like you mentioned, some of the other, I believe, ascended masters,
Yes.
and how they, yeah, incorporated some of that into their lifestyle.
It's almost like, those of us that have studied how to become an ascended master. Yeah, it's about, yeah,
Yeah.
really doing whatever you can to ascend, this
Yes.
plane and this state, these emotions, all the life that we've been creating through our mind and through our ego, and yeah, ascending that
Mm,
and rising above that and going into that creative place and creating a life that we love. But
I
yeah,
love
through
that.
our spiritual path and our connection with spirit and love and all the good stuff.
Larry, I actually have a question. Who have been some of your influences? Like, what made you want to get into this?
Well, this is kind of a funny story. My very first experience. So I was like in love with this guy, and he broke up with me after like a couple of weeks. And like for months and months, I was just completely nuts. And I was at the bookstore, and this book fell like off the shelf onto my foot. And it was called If the Buddha Dated. And I looked up, I was like, okay. So I bought the book, and it's by Charlotte Castle. And in that book, she explores like all the different like spiritual components of all the different religions. And I got in touch with the part of myself that I never even knew existed. Like she studies like there's Buddhist teachings in there, Quaker, Christianity, everything, and I was just open to this completely new world, and it just completely changed my life. The second book I found shortly after was Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. And she's actually with the Center for Spiritual Living. It was called Science of Mind back then. And her teachings like resonated with me. So I just ran and tried to find out how can I become like that? Like how can I really embrace that mind body spirit connection and really like create and live a life of the joy, the peace, the love, prosperity, and all the good stuff.
That's amazing. I love how you were just in a bookstore and how the book just kind of fell on your feet.
Oh,
You like
right. I was just gonna say that is incredible.
It
Tiara,
is.
yeah, Tiara and I often say like there are signs all around us, and oftentimes a lot of people will equate signs to numerology, especially angel numbers, but it could be
Hmm.
something as simple as being in a bookstore and a book falling on your feet. And
Right.
I mean, guys, there are signs, like our listeners, there are signs all around us, and they can manifest in a million different ways. And sometimes it's more blunt and blatant, and other times it's a lot more subtle, and those can be harder to pick
Yeah.
up. But I love that. Thank you for sharing.
And I found Louise Hay's book just like that. I was at a used store, and I was drawing like rainbows and hearts all the time. And I saw this rainbow heart in this dark place. And I was like, let me pick that up. Oh, you can hear it. Oh, I'd like to see that. It was a used bookstore. It was like 25 cents, and it completely changed my life. Yeah. So it was the universe was calling me, definitely.
Books can be really, really impactful. And, books have also been quite impactful for me. Like, I'm reading actually a book right now about Reiki,
Oh,
and it delves into the history behind Reiki and the actual intent behind Reiki when it was initially founded, which was actually for spiritual development of the self.
wow.
So, it's evolved at this point to an energy that we use to help heal others. Larry, you mentioned that you did some energy work, so I'm sure you can relate in some ways.
Yes.
But it's so interesting how books can impact us like that. And we do reference on some of the other episodes for people who are looking to kind of get started in that spiritual journey, but maybe don't quite have the money or the resources to hire a coach, to look at books or look for a book, because they can be very, very impactful, especially when you connect to that right piece of text. Like, it can change your life. Absolutely.
And I really believe also that all healing is self healing. Like you can go to a doctor, you can go to a therapist, you can go to even, a healer. But if you don't have that mindset where you're kind of open to it, and you're actually willing to do the practices or the ideas or the techniques that they're showing you, then the healing won't happen, or it won't happen as fast. But yeah, you have to kind of be open to it. So yes, you can get your healing from books. You can even get it from, like, I get a lot of mine from these quotes. I'm watching movies, and then I'll hear something on the movie, and I'm like, wow, So you can actually, if you're open, you could get that healing from all kinds of sources. But I have thousands of books. I love books, and most of 99% of my spiritual practice is through books and learning and applying what I learned into my life.
It's interesting you mentioned like movies,
Hmm.
and how you can pick up subtle messages through movies. I've done that too, where I've just watched a movie and been like, "Oh my god, why does this resonate so
Yeah.
heavily?"
Yeah.
Like, this is hitting me and I don't know why. But yeah, movies and shows too. Like, you can pick up subtle hints and messages. And me and Allie have talked about how we think, like, when it comes to popular culture and some of the television and, like, the popular films, that they actually tell us the truth, but it's hidden and it's subtle, and you kind of have to like read between the lines to extract it. But they put the truth right in front of us in these films and these movies and these depictions, and we think it's fiction when in reality there's a lot of truth behind some of these things. Um, so yeah, even like pop culture, you can pick up subtle signs that way as well.
And that's why, that's kind of like what metaphysics is. It's like you're in this powerful creative universe. Everything you want for yourself in your life is all around you at all times, and depending on your mental state, whether you see it, the opportunities, or not, whether you hear it or not. So yes, you can get it from a kid, a movie, anything, because at every moment it's all the answers that you want. They're all around you, if you're not blocking yourself in with your emotional or mental state.
So, Larry, I'm so fascinated by this concept, not only of the metaphysics and the metaphysical minister, but also you talked about some of the spiritual church associations that you're a part of. You know, we're not as familiar with some of those spiritual churches and spiritual organizations. Like, when I lived in Arizona, I did go to a spiritualist church, and their whole focus was community and shared healing and educating on spiritual practice. But it wasn't, I don't think that they were affiliated with like any broader organizations. So I'm curious to know more about some of your spiritual church affiliations and how you got involved.
Okay, so I know that a lot of the spiritual churches and communities, they evolved around the same time in the early 1900s, and different leaders, but my history is not it's not as accurate, so I could share it with you. But a lot of the spiritual healing traditions, churches like Unity and mine, which is the Center for Spiritual Living, which started off as Science of Mind, also even Christian Science, they all started from this spiritual place, and they all evolved for spiritual healing and community, and allowing, like, your connection with God to elevate your life.
So it sounds like uh, these organizations are more about like self development or development of the self with a connection to a higher power. but doing that in any way that is comfortable to you. Is that
Yeah, they,
along the lines?
yeah, they have their own practices.
Okay.
And their own guides. Like with my Center for Spiritual Living, we have what they call a treatment, which is a 5-step prayer. First, you connect to
Oh, interesting.
God. Then you know that, like, first you know that God is all that there is. Then you say, "I'm one with God." Then you implant what you want to create, um, knowing that it will be done, and then you have gratitude for it already being done, and then you release it into the universe to be created. You release it into the law
Oh,
to
wow.
be created. And I know that, like Christian Science, they have a really strong belief in self-healing, and yeah, in just unity. They're like a spiritual version of Christianity. So yeah, they all have that spiritual component. Most people are attracted to it after, like there's a lot of religious abuse, or religious,
Right.
like people who are kind of done with their religion, and they still want that
Yeah.
spiritual practice in that community. There's a lot of people who go after, like, um, th- who have had addictions, and they want that help to overcome their addictions. A lot of people come like after they have a lot of grief and loss. It's usually people are attracted to our basis after some part of their life has not worked, and they know that
Mm.
their connection to God is what's going to bring them, or to spirit, or to the creator, or to the universe, is what's going to bring them out of it and into that joy and peace that they are seeking.
I actually really love that.
I do too. And I was just curious. So, would you say a lot of the people that come and find you are people that are just seeking a new way? Like they've tried a certain way for a certain amount of time and they were just like, this isn't working. I don't feel connected. I feel lost. Because we have found in society that like this is a very like pinnacle part in the war happening right
Hmm.
now with all the light activations and the veil thinning
Hmm.
and things coming to surface and people are starting to see things as for what they actually are. And I feel like so many people, especially right now, are just the it's not good, like, what's happening in society and everyone being burnt out and being exhausted, but they are finally awakening from it of saying, like, "There has to be more to this life." Like, I there has to be more than me waking up, working 9 to 5, coming home, going to bed, and then waking up and doing it all over again, and then not being able to pay bills, and, it's I feel like the light is being spread more, but the more that that happens, the more people are confused, people are lost, people don't know which way to turn, and so I'm just curious, like, the people that are coming to you and seeking light workers, do you find that they're more in the beginning stages versus, you know, someone who's probably more advanced in this space?
So I get a mixture of not like, yeah, of advanced to beginners. But most of mine are beginners. Like, I have to introduce, like, my client yesterday. She's like, I don't know where, I don't know if I believe in God. I don't know where God is, but I know that I talk to God. Like, so I had her, like, um, connect with God. Like, I had her really sit with it and let the light of God come and fill her body, and to see all the places in her life where God actually um, was there, like her when you're experiencing immense joy, or that unconditional love when you look at someone, or you're in the flow of life and you're just creating, and like when you're out of your head and you're just 100% connected to others, or to yourself, or to your project, or to even gardening. So people, they know that there's something more out there, but because of their religious upbringing, like she was Catholic, she had this God that was out there, and she had that wrathful God, and she didn't really know where she could fit because she didn't believe all of the things that Catholicism taught. So when I showed her that God
Right.
is already that she's already has a really strong relationship with God, and God is always there, and she talks to God and communicates and uses God when she's creating, then she was able to, like, like, it just lift her spirits, like, yeah, I am connected. I've always been connected. And sometimes it's just that awareness that you've God's always been there, but sometimes we don't see it. Um, but most of my clients either are looking for their purpose, they're transitioning from a new job, maybe retirement, or they're transitioning from a divorce, or um, even the loss like grief because they've lost their spouse. And then many of my clients, they have been diagnosed with personality disorders, and they feel stuck, and they may feel like suicidal, and they feel like, they're stuck in their childhood trauma, and they feel like there's no way out. Almost like, when people talk about the victim's mentality, and all those people are like, I'm not helping anybody with the victim's mentality because they just blame everyone. They don't take responsibility for themselves. They just can't do anything, and they're just too hard to be around. Those are my customers. I mean, those are my clients. I help people get out of that victim's mentality. I'm like, come to me. I get it. I had victim's mentality for most of my life, and I really know like the struggle and the hardship and that like depression and that anxiety, the suicidal ideation. Like, I really know how disempowering that is, and how stuck you can be in that. Um, most of my clients are the people who people stop talking to, you know, so they start isolating because they're not having the similar successes as the people they grew up with. It just could be many different reasons, but many of my clients, they have bad relationships with their family, and like either a low paying or no job. They have no partner. They just struggle with every single area of their lives, and they're stuck, but they know that they want more, and they're usually seekers. Like, they're like hoping that this next book, or this next retreat, or this next meditation, or this next whatever they find is going to have the answer to them, and they're begging and pleading that, God, please, like, let this be it. Wherein I show them that you already are and have everything that you need. You just have to get rid of all of the other stuff.
I love that. That's so beautiful, and it's so accurate too, because I know I was there. I know most people who have been there, just in the victim mentality, people who have experienced a lot of trauma often don't know that it's trauma, and it's just like, why do things keep happening to me? Why do all these horrible things keep happening to me? Why can't I get off the ground? Like, why is everyone against me? Like, you just feel like the world is against you, and you feel like that you have no outlet and no way out. And I just feel like a lot of people, especially today, are just feeling that way. And so I love how you brought that up, because I am in complete agreement. Like, this is why manifestation is a thing, because we are creators, and we are creators of our own reality. No one else is going to create our realities for us. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. It's just people don't know how to tap into that energy. And I love the work that you're doing.
I do as well. And, I was just going to say, like, you are doing a service to humanity because I know what it's like to be in that place, and for the most part, I'm still working through a lot of that stuff, is feeling like, what's the next solution? Where's the answer? Where's the answer? What's going to make it better? What's going to fix it? What's going to take me to that next place? And just not being able to find it. Also struggled with victim mentality, victim mindset, feeling like the universe is against you, and that will leave you stagnant and stuck for a very long time. So, again, Larry, I really respect the work that you're doing, and it's so heavily needed. And especially since you just said that you take the people that no one else wants to work with, and that is not easy
It's
to
not, but
do.
it's
It
like
is
it's
That
not
is
easy to
not
it's my
do.
heart.
easy at all.
It's
So I'm
my
just like,
heart.
wow.
Like even when I was teaching, I taught special
I love
education.
it.
It's my heart. It's like, yeah, they have emotional issues and they had like some physical issues, some mental, you know, disabilities. And when I would see them, I don't know, my heart just expands. I guess my compassion is way like stronger and bigger. And I don't know, I almost become a completely different person. Like I can go in and empathize with them versus where um, if you're working with someone who just wants to like manifest the law of attraction so they can have a lot of money and be successful, like, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's where we all start. Most of us get into this because we want to manifest more money, so that's not an issue. But I just know that the feeling of when I wasn't getting the help that I needed, and when I felt like pushed out, or stuck out on the margins, watching everybody who seemed to be having this great life, and I just didn't know where to turn or what to do. And I know, like, empath- empathically, that's my mission to go in because, like, I don't know if you guys have heard of the ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences. If you have a high score of over 4, which mine was 7, then it's almost like they say, like, you'll never ever have a good life. You'll have health issues, you'll have financial issues, partnership issues. Like, too bad if you're like born. And it has way more compassion. I'm just, I guess, but you know, and for a while I was like, that can't be true. Like there's got to be a way that even if you have had a lot of adverse childhood experiences, that you can, overcome all of these things. And that's just been my mission because I just knew, like, living a life in that stuck place just wasn't, it just never felt good. And even now, I've had a few different adversities, and I had made a choice. I'm like, I'm never going back to that place. So I'm walking around. People are like, "You're glowing," even if I'm having a health or a financial or a relationship struggle. I'm like, I'm not allowing that to take this feeling, this connection, this happiness, this joy away from me. And it's a choice, but it's also a practice. Like every time that thought comes in that says, oh, you should be mad at that person, or look what they did, like the victim blaming thing. Or every time, you know, something happens and you want to say, oh, my life is so bad and people should, help me and feel sorry for me and all of that. You start managing it, and it's an automatic thing. And so you have to find that space between that first thought and that emotional response, or between that thought and emotions and your actions that you take. Or if you already take the actions, to not beat yourself up about, not committing and sticking to what you planned, and just really start monitoring all of those negative thoughts that start to come in and try to take you over, because you commit to, I'm going to have a joyous life. I'm going to manage whatever circumstance or situation comes at me, and I'm going to manage it with self-care. Like I'm going to manage my symptoms. Like I have a lot of anxiety symptoms, and so I just say, like, okay, those are heart palpitations. Okay, that's an upset stomach. Okay, those are tense shoulders. Whatever comes, and I don't go into a story about it. Meaning, I don't start saying, "Oh, I have a thing, coming up, which means that I have anxiety, and that means that I'm not going to do well." Like I manage it. I'm like, nope, it's just anxiety symptom. It's there. I'm going to monitor it, but I'm still going to go and do what I committed to.
I am so happy that you brought that up because I think, or I've been there. Like, I have been in my lowest of the lows, and I did face also a lot of child
Mm-hmm.
adversity, and it almost consumed me
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. And I found a way to snap out of it and push forward. And although I'm so grateful that I was able to do that and really kind of manifest the life that I've always dreamed of. That doesn't mean I don't have bad days, and it doesn't mean that life doesn't kick me down, and I'd say that when life does that to you, because it's going to, like, I don't think people really understand that about spirituality. Like, Tiara and I have talked about this in previous episodes where we often say, it's not all love and light. Actually, most of it is not love and light. It's actually a very dark, deep personal journey to work through your shadows and work through your traumas. And even if you do ascend out of it, and even though, you raise your vibrations, that doesn't mean that life isn't going to still kick you in the face with adversity. And it's really what Larry was saying about what you do when life does that to you. Are you going to take the high road, and are you going to monitor it, and are you going to not let it consume you, or are you going to let it consume you and lower your vibrations and let it keep you down? And I love how Larry was talking about like empowerment, like taking your power back, right? We in truth, are creators of our emotions, our thoughts, our words, and all of that matters. All of that is energy. And so it's really up to the individual's like self awareness and emotional intelligence on whether or not we are going to let adversity kick us down, because it's going to happen. And I need our audience to know that, because I feel like people are just like, oh, I've been putting in the work, and I've been so positive, and I've been doing this love and light thing, and it's just not getting me anywhere. And I don't know why it's not getting me anywhere. And it's really like there's a much bigger picture. And I love how Larry's just bringing out the larger picture.
Larry, you mentioned in describing some of your work, like a lot of people have mental health issues or mental health concerns, or maybe even have diagnoses. I'm of the belief that a lot of people who struggle with mental health matters, at the core, there's a lot of trauma and hurt and wounding and that they don't know how to process. So I'm curious to know, in your opinion, if you think that emotional self care is a really important part of mental health healing.
I really believe that your what is the word? Your emotional health is the key and the secret to creating what you want in your life and to healing. And my technique that I created, because I had tried, I was a metaphysical minister. I did energy healing. I did professional growth, all those seminars. I did retreats. I did everything you can think of under the sun. And I would still end up in that deep, dark place. And even when I would see, like, but I'm thinking the right things, I could still feel that heavy emotion. And when I was at my lowest point, I was able to like kind of rise above, and I saw like clearly that my thoughts were creating my trauma. That all my trauma existed in my thoughts. It wasn't me. Like it did not exist anywhere else but in my thoughts. And every time the thoughts would come up, it would create that heavy emotion. And then that emotion would create all of my choices. And then I would beat myself up. Like when you can clearly see that you're not your thoughts, that you're not your emotions, you're not your body, that you're that creative spirit, then you can actually start seeing that you have control over, that you can heal. And the method is for people who just want like relief right now, because I believe that all healing, all joy, all of that takes place now in the now moment. There's no future joy or future happiness. You either get happy right now, or you're going to choose not to be happy right now. So the way to do that is, if you have any kind of emotional stress, anxiety, depression, something bad happened like a breakup, or you have grief like a loss, You don't push that emotion away and keep trying. You go in, you sit with it, no words, and you feel that emotion as intensely as you can. If it's anger, you feel that anger till you can go, "Argh," you feel that anger, you let it fill the room if you have to. You feel that sadness. If tears come out, you feel it as the biggest, hardest sadness you've ever felt. If you have the grief, anything you feel, you sit with it, no words. You just feel that emotion as strongly as you can in your body. It can be released in 90 seconds for most things, but it could take as long as my first one took like an hour, 30 minutes to an hour. And you just sit with it and joy, love, and you bring that in. You just then you feel the most intense love that you've ever felt in your body, or the intense joy, and you feel that until it takes over your whole body. You try to fill the room with it. You take some deep breaths and you open your eyes and you have that joy right now.
I love that you said that because I feel like so many people repress their emotions. And I know I certainly did it. I don't do it anymore. Well, I go through cycles. It just depends on the situation. It depends on, what emotion is there because not everyone is ready to feel that. And when people aren't ready, they just find ways to distract themselves or they find ways to
Mhm.
sh- shove it down, lock it up, and throw away the key. I know that Tiara and I have both been there. And so it's really interesting how you are bringing that awareness to our audience about just being able to sit with the emotion and being able to feel it and feel it with your
Yes.
every fiber in your being. And I really am a believer that that is a process that needs to happen in order for someone to extract it out of their system. It's like you just got to sit there and you got to feel it. And it's not an easy process because emotions are intense. And, no one wants to feel their body on fire if they're angry. And no one wants to be bawling their eyes out if they're sad or traumatized. And so it's really not an easy process, which is why people go the route of ignore it, let's distract ourselves, let's lock it up and
Yeah.
throw away the key. And I just
But you
love
still
how
you
you
end up
brought that
feeling it
awareness
anyways,
in.
like if it's you drank a whole bottle of wine and you have the hangover, you'll the pain is gonna be there by your choices, and if
That
you're
is true.
gonna keep
That is
eating ice cream every night and beat yourself up in the morning when you're before you get in the shower, it's gonna be there until you're willing to sit with it. But yes, it's been a while. I forgot, yes, you do feel that intense pain. And it's not easy, and that's why you can work with someone to go through that, but it is still something you can do alone. But I want to make sure that people know that if like, let's say you're at work and your boss like degrades you in front of everyone, you don't go and sit and bawl and feel them. You can tell your emotions. Okay, when I get home, i'm gonna I'm gonna deal with it, and usually you can just get right back in if you promise like that you'll deal with it at a later time. And you can also choose when you want to deal with it. Like you don't have to be going through something heavy and hard. You can sit with it and say like every Saturday morning I'm going to start processing all of, my emotions and traumas and all of that. But without story, just the emotional part, I don't believe that we have to keep telling the story. I really believe that every time we tell our tragic story, we have the possibility of re-traumatizing ourselves if we haven't healed it. Mostly like y- y- you can experience joy and happiness right now in the moment, but you do have to deal and process what's blocking you. But you can do that almost instantly if you really like allow it and really sit with the process and really let it go and really know that your mind, your thoughts, your emotions are not who you really are. We all know like there's part of us that was a baby, a kid, a teen, an adult, me now middle aged, right? There's a part of me that's allowed me to know who I was, even though my body was changing, people around me were changing. emotions were changing, thoughts were changing, like life, jobs, everything. There's been change in my human being, but I still know there's a part of me that's never gotten old, that's never been traumatized, that's never been hurt. And that's the part of me that's been with me through all those tough moments and through all those joyous moments and through all those creative moments and through all of the, spiritual moments, the part of me that's been there when I was connecting with nature and that's the part of you that can experience joy in the now when you know how to connect with it, when you're willing to let go of that human part, the ego part, the part that really believes that it's separate from the universe and it has a separate identity and that it's the only one going through this pain and there's no solution and it's just telling you who and what you are all the time and you're like, no, who and what I am is that part that's never been harmed, and you connect to that part and that's where your peace and your joy is.
You brought up something that I don't think very many people talk about. And I love the fact that you said when you talk about your story, you are putting yourself at risk at re traumatizing yourself. So, as a person who does this work, do you often find that your clients are re traumatizing themselves when they are talking about their stories and you're
So
getting to know your client?
just like how I said, like you can put the time aside to process your stuff. So when they're working with me, I wouldn't consider it re-traumatizing because they're we're coming up with the solution. We're coming up with a healing method and you know right then. But yes, I had a client who, like, every time she spoke, every single sentence she ever spoke had some kind of trauma in it. It was like it would be like, even though my family, da, 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 and so we had it. That one took a while for her to stop telling that story. Then she would tell happy stories, but end it with the trauma at the end of each sentence. And then now she was able to actually start knowing, I'm the creator of my life. Do I want to create this trauma over and over? Because she's almost 50. And so for 50 years, she's been telling the story every single time she opens her mouth. And she got to see, like, oh, yeah, I don't want to keep creating that. And even though it's hard to manage, like, those thoughts and it's hard to not want that empathy from others, like when you tell your story, people go, and then you get something from it's sometimes we can form our entire identity out of our trauma, and that's where when it becomes a challenge. But when we form our identity, we're still re-traumatizing ourselves over and over and over again, and we really have to see what identity that we are creating every time we speak. If you believe that every single word you say, every single thought you have is creative, it's attracting something to you. Every single emotion you have is like a magnet. It's bringing whatever emotion you are emanating right now. So if you're emanating sadness, it's saying, oh, she wants sadness. If you're emanating joy, it's saying, oh, she wants joy. If you really get how creative you are, then you'll be willing to use that creative energy for what you want and not use it for what you don't want.
So, Larry, I was wondering because, obviously we've learned a lot about the incredible work that you do. I do understand that you have like a program or like a 12-week program. So, I was wondering if you could share a little bit about that program and what someone would get out of a 12-week program that works through, the emotions.
Okay, so what I love about the program is the very first thing that we do is commit to being our spiritual self, our creative self. Um, you commit to not identifying as any of your roles, any of your opinions, any of your judgments, any of your identities, like your race, your sex, your culture, your nationality. You just really connect to, I am Like I am that spirit, that source, the source and the creator of my own experience. And it's about going from victim to becoming the creator of your life. And we start with really committing to like you sign a contract and everything. I'm willing and able to let go of everything in my past and create what I want for my life from here. And then I show you how to connect to that unconditional love through spiritual practice that you kind of do every day, and how to become the creator of your life. And then I show you your highest self, that the part of you that is the creator, and to start really like setting goals for yourself and living into those goals and start creating from there. And after you know like what you can do and what you're capable of after the first 3 or 4 weeks, that's when we go into like releasing your traumas and going into addictions. I like to tell people that your addiction actually tells you what you want. If you have um, like alcohol, you want to feel that joy. If you gambling, you want prosperity. If you have like the promiscuity, you want love and connection. Like your addiction tells you exactly what you're seeking and you want in your life. You just have to transform it into something that's actually like working for you. I help people like when you have a goal, how to have integrity around it, how to be authentically expressed, how to gain control over all of your emotional responses as they come up, so that you can stay in that place of unconditional love, of truth, of your divine presence and your creative energy to create the life that you want. And I help people also.
Unconditional love.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to make a comment about unconditional love because I feel like a lot of people don't really understand what it means to unconditionally love something. And I would say I mean, it's essential to ascension. It's absolutely essential to ascension. And I feel like it's a very misunderstood thing that people try to rationalize with their mind. And if you're very logical and methodical, to understand conditional love can actually be very hindering on us and confusing. So I was just wondering if you could give us a quick take on unconditional love.
Yes, I love talking about unconditional love. So what we don't realize is that we have conditions on everything. We have conditions on ourselves. I'm only lovable if I achieve this. I'm only lovable if I act like this, or if I have this, or if I don't do this, or if I don't do that. We put all of these huge conditions on ourselves that we can't live up to, and therefore we have a belief that we don't deserve love. Then if you look at it, we have conditions on our kids. Our kids have to do this, do that, do this, and they feel it. Like they know that mom loves me more if I have the grades than if I don't. Like it's we don't mean to put conditions on everything in our lives, but we have conditions on every single thing in our lives, including ourselves, including we even have conditions on the weather, right? It's too hot or it's too cold. Like we just go around like you thinking how things should be instead of accepting things exactly as they are. When you can accept yourself exactly as you are, which means you don't have to do anything, say anything, be anything, but you still know that you're lovable. Like you don't, no one else has to be different than they are. You can start seeing your expectations of others and how it's leading to your own suffering. Your expectations of yourself is leading to your own suffering. You start to see that you are suffering because of all of the conditions that you have on your life, on the world, on people. And then you get to start taking those away. Like unconditional love means no conditions, and that you're loved anyways. You're loved by the universe, you're loved by people. You're loved by yourself. And you just sit in that love with no conditions. When a condition comes up that you have to be a certain weight or a certain height or a certain income level to be loved, you're like, no, I am already loved. There's no conditions on my deserving and worthiness of being loved. or of having what I want for my life.
I kind of feel like people do put conditions on themselves. I know I had a lot of conditions for myself, and I actually had more conditions on myself than my parents had on
Yes.
me.
Yeah,
Like, that was just the amount of pressure that I put on myself, and unconditional love was a concept I did not grasp until my adulthood, and I think that it's the same for a lot of people, and most people aren't even aware of what unconditional love is, and I love
Right.
how you broke that down and gave the definition of it's the conditions that we're putting on ourselves, the expectations we have from other people, because the reality that we live in is that something is always expected of us, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, whether it's from our children, it's all around us at all given times. So it's like, how do you break down those barriers? How do you break down all of the noise and just sit with yourself and find that love? And I think that that's a very difficult process for so many people.
You know, it is. And the unfortunate thing about that is that, when you have conditions placed upon you when you're a child, Larry talks about this, about how parents place conditions upon their children. Children internalize that. And then they grow up thinking, if I don't have those conditions met, then I am not worthy or I am not lovable. And that can cause so many issues, especially when it comes to interpersonal relationships, intimate relationships, trying to achieve and get to that next step. And I also know that that can contribute a lot to self sabotage. So, it's really great that we're talking about unconditional love and the conditions that we place upon ourselves, because I do agree that it's a big hindrance today. And, a lot of inner child's wounding is tied to some of those internalized beliefs that we got from our parents and from our environment.
And society as a whole. Like you can't even watch TV, you can't even watch a commercial without them saying, "Oh, you're not good enough unless you buy our product." You can't sit in a
Oh, right.
classroom. You can't sit in a classroom without the teacher saying, "You're not good enough unless you know the answers to everything that unless you're paying 100% attention to me and you know the answers to everything that I'm saying." Like we walk our human experience is just not being good enough to get the love from
Mm,
everybody around us because of all the conditions that they place. And it's like we don't want to place those on our kids, but we know like how society works is you have to like achieve and you have to do well in life and you have to, be able to make a living for yourself. My ex-husband and I, we we don't parent like that. We let our son make his own choices. We've done that since he was a baby because my ex-husband had a hard childhood too. And so we both decided that we were not going to give any kind of like those kind of traumas or expectations or any kind of abuse to my son. And he makes pretty good choices and we tell him there's consequences for each of your choices, but the most important thing that we wanted is for him to know that he's loved no matter what he does, no matter what choice that he makes, no matter what. And even people around are like, we've never seen a human like that. And you know, it's amazing to watch someone who just knows that everyone loves him. No matter where he goes, he knows he's gonna like meet friends. He can walk up into a group and like speak. And even though sometimes I'm shy, like it's just amazing to see like what life looks like when you don't have that like um that childhood trauma and you don't have like those hard expectations and you don't have um like you get a kind of freedom to like live and choose and be and we can actually give that to ourselves too. We just have to be willing to. Like, does my son get on my nerves? Yeah. Like, does he do things that I don't want? Yeah. And do I have to go and tell him what I think would be the correct way to do it next time? Yeah. Like it's a learning experience for all of us, but I don't have to have that emotional attachment or that anger or that frustration or that this is how you need to be to feel loved.
I love that you're doing that. And you said that people are like, we've never seen a human like this. That is so real because we do not teach that to our children. We don't tell them that. And so many children today are coming up with these deep emotional issues. And it's just so sad because, especially here in the United States, the classroom today is such a tricky place to navigate if you are a teacher because so many children are just not getting what they need from their parents or at home or in their environment. So now the burden is falling upon the teacher. And we talked about this actually in another episode, the crisis that's going on in the classroom, because there aren't any teachers left that really want to have to navigate not only teaching but also the emotional struggles and the emotional issues that they're seeing with children, and it manifests as violence and fighting and outbursts. And it's just so devastating to see what's going on in our society when it comes to some of the things that children are experiencing at home. So I commend you for doing that and instilling that in your child because that's huge and it's very valuable. And I know that that's going to have a very positive benefit on, is it a son or daughter?
It's
Some.
a
Son.
son.
Okay.
He's
I know
15
that's going to
now.
have a positive impact. Oh, he's
Yeah.
15.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, okay. What I was gonna say is we don't know if it'll work. Like we let him make any choice. We let him be the creator of his life. So it's kind of like an experiment, but it's fun, and he's a happy kid. So
I love that you're doing that because that's how my parents raised my brothers and I. We were very free to create and do, and, like, um they spent a lot of time, like, they obviously wanted us to go to school and get good grades, but when it came to, like, after graduating, like, my parents encouraged us not to go to college. Our parents encouraged us to take time off, to go see the world, to go get experiences. Like, there was no pressure to join this societal programming of, you're going to graduate, then you're going to go to college, and then you're going to start in the workforce, and you're going to be in debt, and then you have to buy this house, and then you have to get married and have kids, and the white picket fence. Like, that's what we're taught growing up, especially in the United States. And my parents were just like, you don't need to go to college. Like, if it depends on what you want to do, like what career you want to pick, but for careers like business, you don't need to go to school. And my parents encouraged us to go travel, or my parents encouraged us to go be other places and get some world experience. And I got to tell you, like, a lot of people are just like, I've never met anyone like you, Allie. It's just because of my upbringing. It was because of the freedom that I had. So I am living proof that your parenting style can turn out like wonderfully for a person.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that because yeah, I really 100% believe that I'm giving him that choice, meaning that can he knows that no matter what he chooses, that it's his choice and that there's no like pressure. I love that you've experienced that because now I know it's not just an experiment. I just I know that I love
Yeah.
that you shared that with me. But yeah, it's a fascinating experience watching him, and like right now if he does something I'm like, "Is that your 15?" I call his like little back talk thing. "You're 15?" He's like sometimes he's like, "What?" "Oh yeah." But it snaps him right out of it. So he never has to even go that far with it. Like, um, it's it's just a cool experience to like show him how to be that creativity, to think for himself, to make his choices, to live a life that he wants. And um, yeah, and I never thought about like not telling him he doesn't have to go to college or anything like that. Like I've been kind of like encouraging that. But you're right, he does not have to go. And I tell him all the time, like his dad was in his 40s before he started his business. His uncle was in his 30s. I tell him you can have success no matter what when you start in your life. And so I do encourage him to go to college because he wants to. He's 6'5" and he wants to play in the NBA. So I encourage him to go to college because that's how
Wow.
they recruit. But I told him he doesn't have to. Any choice that he makes is his.
Yeah,
He's
and I
six
love
five.
Yeah, he's a giant.
Really? Oh my
Yeah.
god. Is he getting attention from the ladies? Because he's right at that age and he's
Oh,
at that height that the
yeah,
ladies are usually looking. So I'm just kind of curious if
yeah.
he is and if you have it sounds like
Oh man, he was like a chubby kid, and then all of a sudden he got tall and like super handsome. And it was, I think,
oh,
more than he could even take. So he
oh
kind of spent last year
wow.
just being tall and handsome. He told me this is the funny part. He says, "Mom, to keep your peace and happiness, don't look at my report card." He said, "Just keep your peace and happiness and don't look at my report card." And I was like, "You're right." I said, "I will not look at yours." So I didn't look at his report card. I'm like, I'm gonna keep my peace and happiness. When I finally
How
had
funny.
to, it wasn't even that bad, but he it was just funny. And I was at church when he told me, and everybody starts laughing because we were on speakerphone. But it was funny. He was like, I'm for your own benefit and peace and happiness. Just don't look at my report card."
How clever.
It's cute. It was so funny. It just
Yeah.
made me laugh.
I love that though. I think that people should be given more freedom, especially when we're younger, because that's really our like our retainer of knowledge, and we're sponges and we take everything in. And I just, having grown up in an environment where I really was given so much freedom to create and do what I want, it's like, I don't know. I see the benefit because I have so many friends in my life who grew up very opposite with me, from with very strict schedules and had to get certain grades and had to go to school and do a certain career. And I can see, because I've lived it, I obviously have my perspective, but seeing like that environment and seeing, you know, the pressure that they put on themselves, the amount of anxiety that they have, all the conditions that they have on themselves. I'm just like, you worked your butt off to be here, to be successful, to have this career, and it's like, but are you happy? And so many people are just not happy because they weren't able to create because they put all this pressure on themselves. And so it's just two very interesting perspectives. So I applaud you for doing what you're doing. And like, I love that, it sounds like your son is on the right path. And I think that that should be something that should be explored in parenting.
Agreed, agreed. So, Larry, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. You shared so many insightful things, and I think that there's a lot that people could take for that from this episode. But before we conclude, I'm wondering if you could share for our audience if someone wanted to get involved in doing emotional self care, or for example, the type of work that you do. What advice could you give to them, or what would you recommend for someone who wanted to, you know, take that healing route?
So my what popped in my head when you asked was, um, you really like be 100% committed to having joy in your life every moment that you can. Like, be willing to stop those thoughts, be willing to feel those emotions, be willing to create and visualize that life that you want, and just be willing to make your spiritual practice of joy your life's purpose. And be open to allowing other things, like how you can like benefit the world or society or your family or your workplace with that joy that you're experiencing or emitting out of you. But if you are really like committed to you being your best, highest self, you being unconditional love, you being joy, you being prosperity, you being all of that good stuff, and every time you're not, you commit to being it again. And you may have to commit 100 times a day. You may have to commit 100 times an hour. But if you like become committed to your own emotional health, your own emotional well-being, um, your own journey of having that life and that lifestyle, then you're gonna automatically like I believe that every time, you know how like they say like if the monkeys in one place started using a rock and then all the monkeys all over the world started using it, I don't remember that saying, but if you commit to that joy, it just starts changing all of the world and all of society and all of humanity. It's going to affect people in your house. It's going to affect people at your job. It's going to affect people in your community. And it's you'll by changing yourself, you are actually changing the world.
That's
That's
so
beautiful.
beautiful.
Well, Larry, so thank you again for joining us for this episode. If someone wanted to check out your services, where can they find you?
So my website is energyawareness.com, but it's like inner energy. So it's INNERGY
Right.
awareness.com.
Yes.
And there's also a ebook on there, a free ebook that shows you how it's called Beyond Suffering, how to transform any problem that you have and shift it into whatever you want in 10 minutes or less.
Oh, awesome.
That's so wild. 10 minutes or less.
I
I
know
love
that
that.
is.
I'm going to have to go check that out.
Okay. But it that's all it takes. You do it now. Like anytime you have an aha moment, it happens now. Anytime there's any change whatsoever, it's in the present moment. And so when you have a shift in the present moment and you get in touch with your higher spirit, it's like keeping it moment to moment to moment to moment. It's not like if you do it now and then something happens in you that you failed and you'll never have it again. No, it's just like
Hmm.
shift it now and then maintain it.
Fabulous. Okay, so thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode. Again, I really hope that some of the insights that we were able to glean from Larry are helpful to you guys. We're going to put her information in the show notes so you'll be able to get access to her website and her ebook. Again, this is Reverend Leri Smith of Energy Awareness, correct?
Yes, energyawareness.com. Thank you.
Energyawareness.com. So thank you again, Larry, for joining us, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.
And
Yeah.
thank you for allowing me. I had such a wonderful time talking with you guys.
Yes, we
Thank
were
you, Larry.
so excited to have Larry on, and thank you for taking the time to chat with us. And I extracted a lot of really interesting information um, that I think will be very beneficial because we really are a podcast about self improvement and self help, but with spiritual and new age concepts. And so
Mm,
we hope to
yes.
have more guests like Larry. We have a big season 2 coming up, and also our online community, our spiritual community, you guys, is going to be coming out. Actually, it will be open by the time that this airs. So please check us out, www.goddessvibrationstudio.com. You can learn more about our community. And then we're also on TikTok, Instagram. And if you guys are loyal listeners, please leave us a review on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts. So I just want to extend thank you to Larry again, and thank you to our audience. And we will catch you guys next week.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.